The summer sun beat down on the tall grass as 8-year-old Lily Carter chased butterflies in the field behind her family's Montana home. Her blonde pigtails bounced with each step, small hands reaching out to catch the colorful insects that always seemed just beyond her grasp. "Don't go too far, Lily," her mother called from the back porch. Susan Carter watched her daughter with a smile, thinking how the girl's laughter could brighten even the darkest day. "I won't, Mom," Lily shouted back, already distracted by a particularly bright blue butterfly that landed on a nearby wildflower. Inside the modest farmhouse, Jack Carter prepared lunch, occasionally glancing out the kitchen window at his daughter playing in the distance. Life had been good to the Carter family. Their small farm wasn't much, but it was theirs, and in these peaceful fields, they had found happiness. None of them noticed the slight shimmer in the air above the far end of the field, like heat rising from hot asphalt. Lily followed the butterfly deeper into the tall grass. The insect led her toward the old oak tree that marked the edge of their property. When she was almost there, the butterfly suddenly flew straight up, as if pulled by an invisible string. Lily stopped and looked up, shielding her eyes from the sun. The air above her rippled strangely. At first, she thought it was just the heat, but then a low humming sound filled her ears. Before she could turn to run, a beam of pale blue light shot down and surrounded her. Lily felt her feet leave the ground, her body becoming light as air. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. The world around her blurred, the familiar field and trees fading away as she rose higher and higher. When Susan stepped back onto the porch 10 minutes later with a glass of lemonade for Lily, the field was empty. She called out once, twice, then a third time, each shout more panicked than the last. The glass fell from her hand, shattering on the wooden boards as she ran into the field. "Jack!" she screamed. "Jack, I can't find Lily." By nightfall, the entire town had joined the search. Sheriff Greg Nelson organized volunteers into groups, their flashlights sweeping across the darkened fields and woods. Jack hadn't stopped moving since Susan's first cry for help, his voice growing hoarse from calling his daughter's name. "We'll find her," Sheriff Nelson assured them as midnight approached. "Kids wander off sometimes. She couldn't have gone far." But deep down, he knew this was different. There were no footprints leading away from where Lily was last seen, no signs of struggle, no clues at all. It was as if the little girl had simply vanished into thin air. Miles above Earth, behind a sophisticated cloaking shield, a massive vessel hung in orbit. Its sleek, metallic surface reflected the distant stars as it moved silently through space. Inside, in a sterile white room, Lily Carter lay unconscious on an examination table. Around her stood 5 figures, their bodies tall and thin with skin that shimmered with an iridescent blue-green hue. Their large, almond-shaped eyes studied the small human with scientific curiosity. "The specimen is in excellent condition," said one, its voice a series of clicks and whistles translated through a small device at its throat. "Young enough to adapt, but developed enough for meaningful data collection." Another figure, adorned with elaborate markings that denoted high rank, stepped closer to the table. High Researcher Zexel of the Vrel species reached out one long, 6-fingered hand and gently touched Lily's forehead. "Begin the standard protocols," Zexel ordered. "The Council requires comprehensive analysis of human resilience factors. This specimen will provide valuable insights into their neural development." As the others moved to prepare various instruments, Zexel added, "Remember, this is merely scientific inquiry. The humans remain unaware of our presence, and they must stay that way until the Council decides their fate." Lily's eyelids fluttered as the sedation began to wear off. Far from home, surrounded by beings beyond her comprehension, she slowly woke to a nightmare that would change her world. And theirs. Forever. Lily curled into a tight ball on the cold metal surface where she had slept for what felt like many days. The room around her was too bright, with walls that glowed a soft blue. There was no bed, just the flat examination table that had become her world. When the door slid open with a soft hiss, she didn't look up. She knew what was coming. The tall beings would return with their strange tools and cold hands. High Researcher Zixel entered, followed by 2 assistants. Their long fingers held tablets filled with notes and readings from previous tests. The human child remains uncooperative, Zixel noted, speaking in the clicking language of the Vril. Apply the neural stimulator. We must understand how their pain responses differ from other species. One assistant placed a small silver disc against Lily's temple. She whimpered, knowing what would follow. A sharp jolt of pain shot through her head, causing her small body to jerk. Interesting, Zixel observed, studying the readings on a floating screen. Their neural pathways show unusual patterns. Increase intensity by 20%. The pain grew worse. Tears streamed down Lily's face, but she had learned that crying out only made them more interested in her reactions. The resilience is remarkable, Zixel said. No wonder humans have advanced so quickly despite their limited resources. Record all responses for the Council's primary research database. Back on Earth, 6 months had passed since Lily's disappearance. The search had long since been scaled back, though Sheriff Nelson still checked old leads when he had time. In the Carter home, grief had settled like a heavy blanket. Jack sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by maps and newspaper clippings. Red pins marked places already searched. Blue pins showed reported sightings that led nowhere. His eyes were sunken, his once clean beard now unkempt. "You need to eat something," Susan said, placing a sandwich beside him. She looked no better than her husband, her clothes hanging loose on her thinner frame. Jack pushed aside a stack of papers. "I found another case from 2 years ago. A boy in Idaho vanished the same way. No trace." Susan sighed. They'd had this conversation many times. "Jack, please. The doctors said this isn't healthy." The police gave up. "Someone has to keep looking," he said, his voice cracking. "I know she's still out there." Susan touched his shoulder gently before walking away. She couldn't bear to feed his false hope, nor could she take it away. Thousands of miles away, Lieutenant Alan Hayes sat at his station in the Naval Space Surveillance Facility, a classified listening post hidden in the mountains of Colorado. His job was simple: monitor deep space for any unusual signals. Most days brought nothing but cosmic background noise. Today was different. Hayes adjusted his headphones, frowning at the strange pattern coming through. It definitely wasn't natural, nor was it any known satellite or spacecraft communication. "Sir," he called to his supervisor, "I'm picking up something odd on the outer bands." Captain Olivia Wright walked over. At 45, she had spent her career listening to the stars, hoping for signs of intelligent life. "What have you got?" she asked, leaning over his shoulder. Hayes played the recording. A series of strange clicks and whistles filled the room, but between them, barely audible, was something else. "There," Hayes pointed to a waveform on his screen. "That's not part of the alien language. It's separate." Wright listened more carefully as Hayes isolated and enhanced the sound. A child's voice, speaking English, came through the static. "Please, help me. They hurt. My name is Lily." Wright felt her blood run cold. "How far out is this coming from?" Hayes checked his instruments. "That's the thing. It's coming from just beyond lunar orbit. Whatever sent this is practically in our backyard." Wright straightened up, her mind racing. "Lock down this recording. Tell no one what you heard." She picked up a secure phone. "I need to make some calls. If what we just heard is real, everything is about to change." As she dialed, Wright glanced once more at the sound wave pattern on the screen. A human child, somehow in space, calling for help. It seemed impossible. Yet the voice had been clear enough. A little girl named Lily, held somewhere beyond Earth, suffering. Captain Wright stood before a table of serious-faced military officials in a room deep beneath the Pentagon. The lights were dim as she played the recording for the 5th time that day. "Please, help me. They hurt. My name is Lily." The voice echoed in the silent room. General Frank Harris, head of Space Defense Command, leaned forward. "You're certain this isn't a hoax?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Wright replied. "We've confirmed the signal came from beyond lunar orbit, and we've matched the voice pattern to missing persons cases." She placed a photo on the table. Lily Carter disappeared from Montana 7 months ago. The room fell silent as the officials considered the implications. "We've assembled a team to analyze the signal further," Wright continued. Dr. Patricia Moore, our leading xenobiologist, and Kevin Diaz, our best communications specialist. On the ship, Lily had grown weak. Food came rarely, and sleep was difficult under the constant light. Today, something different happened. A new alien entered her room while the others were away. This one was smaller than the rest, with skin that shimmered more green than blue. It approached cautiously. "Hello, small human," it said in broken English. "I am Thrix." Lily pressed herself against the wall, terrified of another test. "No hurt," Thrix said, placing a container of water near her. "I learn humans. I help." Lily stared at the alien, then at the water. Slowly, she reached for it. "Why do they hurt me?" she asked, her voice scratchy from disuse. Thrix's large eyes blinked slowly. "Council fears humans. Fears what you become. I not agree with methods." The alien glanced nervously at the door. "Must go. Will return." After Thrix left, Lily felt something she hadn't in months, a tiny spark of hope. In the lab aboard the Earth ship Kennedy, Dr. Patricia Moore studied the alien language patterns from the transmission. Her dark hair was pulled back, her eyes tired from hours of work. "The language has a mathematical structure," she explained to Kevin Diaz, who sat nearby. "Similar to how dolphins or whales communicate, but far more complex." Diaz nodded, his fingers moving quickly over a keyboard. "I've isolated 17 distinct sound patterns that repeat. Could be words or phrases." "There's something else," Moore said, pointing to her screen. "These readings show the transmission came from a very large object, much bigger than any satellite we've put up." "A ship?" Diaz asked. "Has to be," Moore replied. "And based on the energy signature, it's using technology we can't even begin to understand." The door opened, and Captain Wright entered with a man in a dark suit. "This is Agent Richard Grant from Special Intelligence," she said. "He has information you need to hear." Grant placed a small device on the table. "We've been tracking unusual activities for decades. People disappearing without a trace. Strange objects in our skies. We believed we were being watched." He pressed a button on the device, showing images of people who looked human but with subtle differences. "We now believe they've had observers among us for years." Moore studied the images. Alien spies disguised as humans. "Yes," Grant nodded. "And we recently captured one." Meanwhile, aboard the Council ship, High Researcher Zixel reviewed the latest test results with growing frustration. The human child continued to show remarkable resilience despite increasingly harsh tests. "The Council demands results," another researcher reminded him. "The human expansion must be contained before they reach deep space capabilities." "I understand," Zixel said. "Begin the neural mapping sequence. We need to understand how their minds process fear and pain. Only then can we determine the most effective way to control their species." Neither noticed that Thrix had entered the room and was listening from the shadows, a small recording device hidden in its hand. In the holding cell, Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed. She imagined her home, her parents, the butterfly she had chased that fateful day. Somehow, she knew help was coming. She needed to stay strong until then. "I'm still here, Mom and Dad," she whispered. "Please find me." Unknown to her, her whisper was picked up by Thrix's recording device, heading toward Earth on a narrow beam transmission. The man who called himself Daniel White sat in a steel chair in the center of a windowless room. Despite being held for 3 days, his suit remained unwrinkled, his posture perfect. 4 cameras watched his every move. Behind a one-way mirror, Agent Grant stood with Dr. Moore and Captain Wright. "He hasn't asked for a lawyer, food, or even a bathroom break," Grant said. "His fingerprints match a diplomat who's worked at the UN for 15 years, but old photos show subtle differences in facial structure." Moore studied the man carefully. "What has he told you?" "Nothing yet," Grant replied. "But we found this." He held up a small metal object the size of a coin. It was hidden under his skin. "Our best guess is some kind of communication device." In the interrogation room, the door opened. Commander Sam Russell entered, carrying only a folder. Tall with short gray hair, his face showed the hardness of a career soldier. "We know what you are," Russell said simply, sitting across from White. White's expression didn't change. "I'm a diplomat with full immunity. This detention is illegal." Russell opened the folder and placed a photo on the table. It showed White 15 years ago, looking exactly the same as today. "Humans age," Russell said. "You don't." White remained silent. "We have the girl's voice," Russell continued. "We know your people took her and others. We know you're watching us." Something flashed in White's eyes. Surprise, perhaps fear. "The Council believes monitoring developing species is necessary," White finally said, his voice oddly flat. "We mean no harm." Russell slammed his hand on the table. "No harm. You kidnapped and tortured a child." White tilted his head slightly. "The research subjects are treated according to protocol. The information gathered helps determine galactic policy toward new species." "Where is the base you operate from?" Russell demanded. White's lips tightened. "I cannot disclose." Russell slid another photo across the table. This one showed a strange structure partly hidden in ice. "Europa," Russell said. "We found your outpost on Jupiter's moon. Our probe took this 3 days ago." White's perfect composure finally cracked. "Impossible. Your technology can't." "We've been busy," Russell cut him off. "Now you're going to tell us everything about the ship holding Lily Carter and the other humans you've taken." Meanwhile, in the ship's laboratory, Thrix worked quickly while alone. The small alien connected a device to the main computer, downloading files labeled Earth Containment Protocol. Thrix had grown increasingly troubled by the Council's methods. The tests on the human child had gone far beyond scientific inquiry. What began as observation had become cruelty. A noise in the corridor made Thrix freeze. When no one entered, the alien continued downloading, adding files about other human subjects held in different sections of the massive ship. In her cell, Lily sat with her eyes closed, trying to send her thoughts outward as Thrix had taught her. The tests had changed her somehow. Sometimes she could feel Thrix's presence before the alien entered the room. Sometimes she caught glimpses of images from the minds of her captors. "Focus on the one who helps you," Thrix had instructed during their last secret meeting. "Your mind is changing, adapting. This is why they fear humans." Lily concentrated harder, picturing Thrix in her mind. Suddenly, she felt a connection, faint but real. "They're coming," she whispered, not knowing if Thrix could hear her thoughts. "People from Earth are coming." On Earth, a sleek black spacecraft unlike any built before waited in a hidden hangar deep in the Nevada desert. A team of 12 men and women made final preparations, checking equipment designed specifically for the mission. "Our window is narrow," Commander Russell told them. "The Europa base is our entry point. From there, we locate the main ship in orbit. Lieutenant Hayes has tracked its position using the transmission signals." Hayes nodded, adjusting the weapons on his tactical suit. "The alien ship maintains a geosynchronous orbit above the Atlantic. Based on White's information, we believe at least 30 human captives are held aboard." "This is a rescue mission," Russell emphasized. "But make no mistake, we are at war. These beings have been studying us for years, planning our containment or extinction. We will not give them the chance to finish their plans." Captain Wright stepped forward. "Remember Lily Carter." Remember why we fight. The Earth ship cut silently through space, its new engines based on technology taken from White's communication device. The team inside wore specialized suits designed to hide their heat signatures. Commander Russell checked the mission clock. 20 hours since launch, and Europa grew larger in their viewports. 5 minutes to landing. Lieutenant Hayes announced from the pilot's seat. No signs they've detected us. The icy surface of Jupiter's moon loomed below them. Hidden in a deep crater lay the alien outpost, its metal structures half buried in the frozen surface. Remember, Russell told his team, our goal is to access their transport system. According to White, they use matter transfer technology to move between outposts and their main ship. The spacecraft touched down a half-mile from the outpost. The team moved across the icy surface in practiced formation, using the low gravity to their advantage. When they reached the structure, Dr. Moore used a device to decode the entry panel. The symbols matched the language patterns from the transmission. She whispered as the door slid open. Inside, blue lights cast an eerie glow over curved walls. The team moved silently, weapons ready. They encountered 2 aliens similar to the ones White had described. Hayes and another soldier quickly subdued them without raising an alarm. This way, Kevin Diaz said, following a map created from White's information. The transport chamber should be down this corridor. They found the chamber, a circular room with a raised platform in the center. Strange symbols covered the walls. Can you make it work? Russell asked Moore. She studied the control panel. I think so. The numerical system is base 12, but the logic is similar to ours. On the Council ship, High Researcher Zixel prepared for the day's most important test on Lily. The Council had demanded faster results, concerned about Earth's rapid technological advances. Today we begin deep neural mapping, Zixel told the research team. This will be painful for the subject, but necessary to understand how humans might respond to large-scale control measures. Frick stood among the other assistants, heart racing. The plan had to work today. The human child would not survive many more tests. I will prepare the subject, Fricks volunteered. Zixel nodded, distracted by the equipment preparations. In her cell, Lily sat perfectly still, eyes closed. Her mind reached out, sensing Fricks approaching long before the door opened. They come today, Fricks whispered, quickly attaching a small device to Lily's thin hospital gown. When lights change color, stay down. Lily nodded weakly. The months of tests had left her body frail, but her mind had grown stronger in strange ways. In the transport chamber on Europa, Moore activated the system. The platform hummed with energy as the team stepped onto it. Coordinates set for the main ship, she confirmed. But we'll have only moments before they detect the unauthorized transport. Russell nodded. Everyone ready. Weapons hot. The world dissolved around them in a flash of blue light. When their vision cleared, they stood in a similar chamber aboard the massive Council ship. An alarm immediately began to sound. Hayes moved to the door, checking the corridor outside. Clear for now, he reported, but they'll be coming. Split as planned, Russell ordered. Teams 1 and 2, find the holding cells. Team 3 with me. We secure their data core. As they moved into the corridors, screens on the walls flashed with alert symbols. The rescue had begun. In the research lab, Zexel was preparing the neural mapping equipment when the alarm sounded. The screen showed an unauthorized transport from Europa. Impossible, Zexel hissed. Humans cannot. Before he could finish, the lab plunged into darkness. When emergency lights activated, they glowed red instead of blue, and Fricks was gone. In her cell, Lily saw the lights change color. She curled into a ball in the corner as Fricks had instructed. Moments later, an explosion rocked the door. Through the smoke, she saw figures in black suits enter. Lieutenant Hayes knelt beside her. Lily Carter, he asked gently. She nodded, tears filling her eyes. We're from Earth, he said, wrapping a thermal blanket around her shoulders. We're taking you home. Hayes carried Lily through the blue-lit corridors of the alien ship. She weighed almost nothing, her small body weakened from months of tests and poor food. 2 soldiers moved ahead of them, weapons ready. "We found more cells," crackled a voice over the radio. "At least 20 humans. Some are in bad shape. Get them to the transport chamber," Russell ordered from somewhere else on the ship. "We have 15 minutes before our extraction window closes." In the data core, Russell and Dr. Moore worked quickly. They had fought their way through 4 alien guards to reach this room, the heart of the ship's information network. "I'm downloading everything I can," Moore said, her fingers flying over the adapted interface. "There's so much here. Star maps, species profiles, weapons designs." Russell stood guard at the door. "Focus on anything about Earth. We need to know their plans." As Moore worked, a flashing symbol caught her attention. She tapped it, and images filled the screen. Planets burning, entire civilizations reduced to ashes. "My God," she whispered. "This isn't the first time they've done this. They'd been experimenting on developing species across the galaxy for thousands of years." "How many?" Russell asked. "Hundreds," Moore said, her voice shaking. "They categorize worlds by potential threat level. Earth is listed as extreme risk, recommended action, controlled extinction." Russell's face hardened. "Download it all. The world needs to see this." Meanwhile, Hayes and his team had reached a junction when 6 armed aliens appeared ahead of them. These were different from the scientists, taller, with armor covering their iridescent skin. "Security forces," warned one of Hayes' men. The aliens raised weapons that glowed with blue energy. Before they could fire, a side door opened, and Thrix appeared. "This way," the small alien urged. "Quick path to transport." Hayes hesitated only a moment before following. Thrix led them through narrow maintenance passages, avoiding the main corridors now filling with security forces. "Why are you helping us?" Hayes asked as they moved. "Counsel wrong," Thrix replied simply. "What done to child, to all humans, not science, is cruelty." They reached the transport chamber to find it guarded by 3 security aliens. A firefight erupted, bright energy bolts flying through the air. One of Hayes' men fell, his suit smoking where he'd been hit. Hayes placed Lily safely behind cover, then joined the fight. Their Earth weapons, while primitive compared to alien technology, still proved deadly. When the chamber was secured, other rescue teams began arriving with more human captives, men and women of different ages, all thin and scared, many bearing strange scars. "Where's Russell?" Hayes demanded. "Still in the data core with Moore," someone answered. "They're cut off. Security forces are closing in." On the bridge of the ship, High Researcher Zixel watched the security feeds with growing rage. The human attack was unexpected and should have been impossible. Their technology was too primitive for such a coordinated assault. "How did they find us?" he demanded. "How did they access our transport system?" A subordinate approached nervously. "Sir, we've identified the human craft that reached Europa. It uses elements of Council technology." Zixel's large eyes narrowed. "Only possible through betrayal. Find the traitor." In the data core, Russell and Moore heard the sounds of approaching security forces. Their download was only at 70%. "We need more time," Moore said. Russell checked his ammunition. "I'll buy you what I can." In the transport chamber, Hayes prepared to send the first group of rescued humans back to the Europa base, where their ship waited. "We can't leave without Russell and Moore," he told his team. "And we need that data." Lily, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke. "I can find them." Her voice was weak but determined. "I can see where they are in my mind." Hayes looked at her in surprise. Thrix stepped forward. "The tests changed her," the alien explained. "Human minds adapt. She has developed abilities." "I can do more than find them," Lily said, her eyes seeming to glow slightly in the dim light. "I can help them." She closed her eyes in concentration. Across the ship, A security alien about to fire at Russell suddenly stopped, weapon dropping from its hand as it clutched its head in pain. Lily opened her eyes, which now definitely glowed with a faint blue light. "The Council hurt me to learn about humans," she said. They learned the wrong lesson. 3 weeks after the rescue mission, world leaders gathered in a secret underground facility in Switzerland. The mood was grim as they watched video evidence from the Council ship. On large screens, they saw alien scientists performing cruel tests on human subjects, including Lily. President Laura Clark of the United States stood to address the room. "What you have seen is only a small part of what was happening. The data recovered shows that the Galactic Council has been watching us for centuries, waiting for the right moment to contain our species." General Harris stepped forward. "The Council represents 17 advanced species that consider themselves the rulers of this part of the galaxy. They'd done this before to other worlds that they deemed threatening." Dr. Moore presented the next slides. Their plan for Earth included engineered diseases, weather control to cause famines, and eventually direct intervention to reduce our population by 80%. Angry murmurs filled the room. The Japanese Prime Minister spoke up. "Can we negotiate with them? Our technology is far behind theirs." From the back of the room, a small voice answered. "They don't negotiate with species they fear." All heads turned to see Lily enter with her parents. Jack and Susan Carter stood protective on either side of their daughter. Lily looked better than when she was first rescued, but still too thin, with strange scars visible on her arms. "This is Lily Carter," President Clark said. "She has agreed to share what she learned during her captivity." Lily stepped forward, her voice stronger than her appearance suggested. "The Council is afraid of humans because we adapt faster than any species they've studied. Their tests on me and others were to find our weaknesses. But instead, some of us developed new abilities." She closed her eyes, and a glass of water on the table slid an inch without being touched. The room fell silent. Thrix, who had defected to Earth, stood beside Lily. "Many species in Council space are treated poorly. They would join humans against their rulers if given hope." Captain Wright, now promoted to Admiral, presented the military assessment. "Using the technology we've recovered, we've enhanced our existing weapons and ships. We can now reach Council space and potentially defend Earth." "But for how long?" asked the Russian president. "They will send their full fleet eventually." Commander Russell, his arm still in a sling from the rescue mission, stepped forward. "That's why we need to strike first. Hit them before they expect us to be capable of it." President Clark nodded gravely. "After reviewing all options, the Security Council has voted unanimously to approve what we're calling the Prometheus Protocol." On a screen, a map of nearby star systems appeared, with 5 highlighted points. "These are the closest Council military bases and research facilities. We will launch simultaneous attacks on all 5 targets." "This is not a war of conquest," Admiral Wright clarified. "Our goal is to show the Council that harming humans has consequences and to free the oppressed species under their control." Jack Carter spoke up unexpectedly. "My daughter was tortured for months. Part of me wants to burn their whole civilization down." He paused, emotion thick in his voice. "But Lily taught me something important. We need to be better than them." Lily squeezed her father's hand. "The Council thinks humans are dangerous because we're violent and unpredictable. I want to show them we're dangerous because we're just, because we fight for what's right." Admiral Wright outlined the mission details. "Our first fleet is ready. We've built 6 advanced ships using reverse-engineered technology. Each carries a message to be broadcast before attack. Images of what was done to our children, followed by a simple statement: 'You chose this war.'" In orbit above Earth, the 6 new ships gleamed in the sunlight. Unlike the clunky spacecraft of previous years, these were sleek and deadly, powered by engines that could cross light years in days instead of centuries. Inside the lead ship, Hayes checked the weapons systems one last time. On his screen, the coordinates for the Council military base, known as Outpost Krell, glowed blue. For Lily, he whispered as the countdown to launch began. For all of them, the war lasted 9 months. Earth forces struck with a speed and ferocity that shocked the Galactic Council. Human ships appeared in systems thought safe, their weapons targeting military installations while avoiding civilian areas. Before each attack, the same message played across all frequencies. Images of Lily and other children in the laboratories, followed by the words, "You chose this war." On the Council capital world of Xanthoria Prime, panic spread among the ruling elite. Their carefully built empire, maintained through fear and technology, was crumbling. "How is this possible?" demanded Council Elder Vox, his usually perfect blue skin now pale with stress. They were primitives just making their first steps into space. High Researchers Exel, now serving as emergency military advisor, had no answers. They adapted our technology too quickly, and 3 subject species have joined their rebellion. Reports flooded in from across Council space. The Narration, the Krell, and the Ventari, all species previously categorized as contained, had risen up against their Council overlords. On the human flagship New Horizon, Admiral Wright studied the holographic map of Xanthoria Prime. 5 years ago, she had been listening for alien signals in a mountain base on Earth. Now she commanded a fleet of 30 ships heading for the heart of the Council. Final approach, Hayes announced from his position as tactical officer. Council defenses are scrambling, but their coordination is breaking down. Wright nodded. Begin broadcast on all frequencies. Across the Council world, screens filled with images of human children in laboratories. But this time, the message that followed was different. We come for justice, not vengeance. Surrender those responsible. In a small transport ship following the fleet, Lily Carter sat with her father. Now 13, she had grown taller but remained thin, her body marked with scars that would never fully heal. Her mind, however, had grown powerful. "They're afraid," she said quietly, her eyes closed as she sensed the emotions from the planet below. "But also confused. They don't understand why we didn't just destroy them." Jack put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. "That's why you wanted to come, isn't it? To show them there's another way." When the Council refused to surrender, the human fleet disabled their defensive systems with surgical precision. Ground forces led by Commander Russell secured the Council chamber while suffering minimal casualties. The Council elders, 17 beings representing the ruling species, found themselves surrounded by human soldiers and representatives of the formerly subjugated races. Admiral Wright entered with Lily and her father. The chamber fell silent as the small girl walked forward, her eyes meeting those of High Researchers Exel. "Do you recognize me?" Lily asked. Zixel's large eyes blinked slowly. "Subject 27A, you were part of our research program." "My name is Lily Carter," she corrected him. "I was 8 years old when you took me from my home and tortured me." One of the Council elders stepped forward. "The research was necessary for galactic security. Your species develops too quickly, adapts too readily. You would eventually threaten all established order. And that gave you the right to torture children," Jack demanded, his voice tight with controlled rage. "We expected you to destroy us when you gained the power," another elder admitted. "It is what we would have done." Lily shook her head. "That's why you failed. You never really understood humans. We can be terrible or wonderful. We choose which to be." Admiral Wright addressed the Council formally. "The terms are non-negotiable. The Galactic Council, as it exists, is dissolved. All subjugated species are freed. Those directly responsible for experimentation on sentient beings will face trial." "And if we refuse?" asked Elder Vox. In answer, a hologram appeared, showing the human fleet in orbit, weapons ready. But Lily stepped forward once more. "We could burn your worlds like you planned to burn ours. Instead, we offer a choice: justice or destruction." 5 years later, Lily stood on a platform in the new Galactic Congress building, constructed on what was once Council land. Ships from 50 worlds filled the skies above, representatives gathering for the 5th anniversary of the liberation. Jack joined his daughter, now a poised young woman training to become a diplomat. "Do you ever regret showing mercy?" he asked. After all they did. Lily shook her head, watching the diverse beings entering the Congress Hall. Humans walking alongside Narration, Krell, and even some former council species. Making them live to see this. A galaxy where all species have rights, where knowledge is shared, not hoarded. That's a far better punishment. She smiled. "We didn't just burn their worlds, Dad. We rebuilt them into something better."